Welcome to the Ayn Rand Center UK's The Daily Objective. I'm Michael Liebowitz, and I'm joined today by the great James Valliant. And we're going to discuss the absolute mess that the Republicans in the United States have got themselves into. So let's just jump right in. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Wow. You know, when it began yesterday and the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, said, yeah, we're going to let this vote happen, I figured, because he's the Speaker of the House and he can control anything that comes to the floor or stop anything from going to the floor. His confidence in just letting it happen without any delays suggested to me that he was confident that he had the votes, that he could do it. But no, he did. As it turns out, he very much did not. And 8 Republicans, now get this, the Republicans have a very narrow, there's 435 people in the House of Representatives. It takes 200 and something, obviously, to have a majority. This guy's got a 4-seat majority. If he loses 5 Republicans, he can't get something passed. It's that narrow a majority. He barely got in. Now, Nancy Pelosi, years ago, changed the rule. The normal rule was that any member of the House could call for a no confidence vote on the Speaker. Nancy Pelosi said, no, it takes the majority of that party's conference. In other words, to put her to this, when she was Speaker, up to what McCarthy just did, it would have taken a majority of Democrats to say, no, let's even have this. McCarthy changed that rule when he came in. He said, all it takes is one of you all to complain about this, and then the Republicans have to go to a huddle and decide who the Speaker is. Well, he changed that rule. He let it happen. And there's been a guy, of course, Matt Gaetz, has been gunning for him. And it's I think it's a personal vendetta thing. He's been gunning for him, and he got 7 of his Republican colleagues. And of course, 5 or more is all you needed. And goodbye, McCarthy. And McCarthy says, okay, it's all yours now. Now, do I think that the Republican establishment is full of compromising, unprincipled pragmatists? Yes. Do I think that the budget is completely out of control? Yes. Do I think that some of these Freedom Caucus Republicans are correct in terms of McCarthy is willing to sell the farm when doing negotiations? All that is a separate question. My question to Mr. Gaetz would be, do you think that in reality anything is going to be different? He still has a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president that they have to negotiate with. All they've done is procedurally delay themselves from doing anything. I don't see any practical results from this other than to communicate to the world that this party is dysfunctional, one, because at some point they'll have a speaker. They're discussing Steve Scalise, the majority leader. He was, remember, the guy shot in that congressional baseball game. Jim Jordan, say. There are other really interesting candidates they've got. And I think they'll find one quickly and put him in there, and it won't be much different than McCarthy. So I don't think at the end of the day there's really any practical results other than this personal vendetta and Gaetz wanting to get his name, or Gaetz, and to get his name in the headlines. So Congressman Gaetz, you get a big headline for you, which will hurt you with some and help you with others. But that's what you were after, is the personal glory. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the way things are. The legislation is going to pan out at the end of the year, frankly.
Yeah. To me, I can sum up this entire thing in one word: hypocrisy. And I will go back to January 6th and Kevin McCarthy, frantic on the telephone with Donald Trump. He was a mess, as were others. I'm not begrudging him that. But then a few days later, a picture appeared all of a sudden with him, and he's shaking hands and, slapping backs with Donald Trump. And he basically bent down and kissed the ring of the Donald because he thought that would be politically expedient for him. Well, not so much, it turns out. But then the thing I found interesting about this is one of the big gripes that these 8 Republicans have with McCarthy is that he relied on Democrats to pass legislation. But hold on, they relied on 210 Democrats. It was only them 8. So what was it? 208 Republicans or 210 Republicans, something like that, voted to keep McCarthy. An overwhelming majority of Republicans wanted to keep McCarthy. So these 8 sided with the Democrats to get rid of him. Then we have the Democrats. Always. You have to pass these bills, these institutions. We have to govern. We were sent here for the American people, blah, blah, blah. They know what's going to happen as a result of this. They know the chaos that's going to ensue. The government can shut down. I think it's 40 days or 45 days if they don't get legislation passed, because they've only got that stopgap in that McCarthy.
Right. Only a couple of weeks. Even.
Yeah. You know, if you can't get somebody in there, what's going to happen then? But the Democrats, for political reasons, sit back and, okay, so you're all a bunch of hypocrites. And Jim, this reminds me, I hear a lot of objectivists. It's a sort of like a slogan. Government is a necessary good. And it's in response to the founders, Thomas Paine, I think George Washington said government's a necessary evil. A lot of libertarians say it. And I think that it would be better said that government is necessary and it could be good. But it's not necessary.
We haven't yet seen.
No, well, that's the whole thing. I mean, if we're talking about honest conceptualizations of concretes, we've never seen this. We've never seen a government operate the way that it's supposed to be.
Well, we've never seen a perfect government, but we have seen good government in the United States. That is to say, there have been lots of instances where I'd say that there was good justice that was done. Now, has our government done all kinds of bad stuff? Has there ever been a government that hasn't gone corrupt and done evil things? No, of course not. And let me put it this way. I am not one who normally is in favor of the smooth operation of the legislative system.
Well,
if they be dysfunctional and not pass laws, I think on balance would be better off. But there are certain things. So when people say, "Oh, this is gridlock, this is going to slow things down," I send up a cheer. Anything that slows them down is a good thing. I don't want them to be efficient and effective. But on the other hand, you make a really great point about hypocrisy. So Gaetz and his friends say, "McCarthy, you're such a sinner because you work and are willing to negotiate with the Democrats, and then to get rid of McCarthy, they have to go against 90% of their own caucus and work with all the Democrats." And to accomplish what?
Nothing.
Someone like Scalise or Jim Jordan is going to come in there, and he's pretty much going to be the same. And the legislative outcomes are going to be pretty much the same. But of course, Matt Gaetz gets his headline, like I say. And the Democrats are doing it, of course, because now they can say, ha, 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 look how dysfunctional they are, and distract with other headlines, rather than spending being the issue, or President Biden's family corruption being the issue, or crime being the issue, or the economy or inflation being the issue. Democrats just love political dysfunction taking over the headlines, because Biden is apparently doing very, very poorly in the polls right now. And so they want distraction from all the other issues, frankly. Sure. As many other issues, including Biden's inability to complete a sentence. They want distraction from all those other issues. And lo and behold, the Republicans are just dumb enough, as usual, to give them just that opportunity. Does it show dysfunctional government? Yeah. Am I normally in favor of somewhat dysfunctional government? Yeah, I mean, all things being equal. But in this case, all it is grandstanding, showboating that can only delay. The government will shut down. These people are going to pass budgets, and all it can do is delay the inevitable, it seems to me. And this was just a bad headline for the Republicans, who just look like they're in total chaos.
Yeah, I have no use for Democrats. I have no use for Matt Gaetz, no use for Kevin McCarthy. I really don't care what happens with any of them, because nothing good happens when they're in office anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I love when they put their hypocrisy out on display. Right. And what amazes me is how many people just don't see it, because it's so crystal clear. And it reminds me, and I may have told you this before, about 12 years ago or so, I read an article in the Freeman from the Foundation of Economic Education. It was an article by an economist named Michael Munger, and it was called something to do with unicorns. And his whole point was unicorns don't exist. So he said, whenever somebody talks to me about the government doing this or doing that, I tell them to replace government with the actual politicians, representatives, and bureaucrats that you know. And then ask yourself the same question. Because hypothetically, yeah, we could say, well, government's, whoa, great. But when we look at it, what we actually get are your Matt Gaetz's, your Kevin McCarthy's, your Donald Trump's, and, you know, the whole slew of Democrats who were grandstanding. This guy did this and he did, like, they wouldn't all do the same thing if the shoe was on the other foot. And it's just reprehensible. But you know what, Jim? Ultimately, the blame falls back always on the sainted American people. The American people want this is what the American people want. They may not know it, but ultimately what has Congress got? A 90% reelection rate or something ridiculous like that?
Right. And a 10% approval rate. So you ask them, what are the least approved of in groups in the United States Congress, yes. And yet the vast majority of them get reelected. They have this incumbency advantage. You're absolutely right. We think of how dysfunctional our system is. 60-some% of the American people do not want Trump to be the president. 70-some% of the people don't want Biden to be the president. And yet each of the major parties is hell bent. They're front runner. They're going to jam through someone for each of the major parties that a clear majority, 2/3 of the American people, don't want either of them. Now, go figure. That's a serious dysfunctional issue here, it seems to me.
Yes.
And that's why Robert Kennedy's or the no labels people are out there saying, I'm going to do the independent thing. Yeah. Or Professor Cornel West is going to run for the Green Party. When you got those, I think there could be a powerful third party or independent challenge this time, because the parties are hell-bent on nominating someone the clear majority of the Americans don't want in there. Talk about dysfunctional. But you're absolutely right. What is the great Henry Louis Mencken, the sage of Baltimore, once defined democracy as the theory that says people know what the theory of government that says people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. And you're absolutely right. That's the American people and the American voter at the end of the day who gets the blame here. Of course, it's their educators. It is the ideas they're taught. It's the professors and intellectuals and artists and journalists who are leading them down this path that are get even more of the blame. But human beings, even ordinary people like you and me, we have a responsibility to think for ourselves. And before we go in and punch some ballot, some vote, know what the hell we're doing when we do that. Otherwise, we get exactly, a democracy is the state where you get the government that you deserve. And by and large, I don't think the election was stolen from Trump last time. Nor do I think it was stolen when Trump won, despite what Hillary said. I think they're both wrong, and people are just getting the crappy government that they voted for.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some super chats. We've got Bonnie Bertrand for 99 cents. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Jonathan Honig for $2.99. Thank you as well. And then Zion Perez for $10. And he says, unveiling bureaucracy and identifying the root of the issue with my favorite duo. Great program. And thank you very much. You. And on that note of favorite duo, perhaps we should run for president and vice president. I'll give you the top of the ticket. And hey,
do it.
And I won't pull an Aaron Burr. I won't pull an Aaron Burr and try to get the top of the ticket. I promise.
No, but the thing is, I think you and I could come together with a platform of issues that would probably be the correct priority and the correct issues. And but Michael, I think our problem is what we were just talking about: the people getting what they want. I don't think the American people would elect us dog catcher right now.
Yeah. But you got to remember, there's also the people that would be on our side that would say, well, Liebowitz, the way he dotted his I, that's not exactly correct. I don't know if I could support that. Or, and did you see Jim today, the way he pronounced such and such? I don't know if that's going to cut it. But you mentioned Henry Louis Mencken. I believe he said something to the effect of, you'll never go broke betting on the stupidity of the American people. He said something like that.
He was a little more cynical than I tend to be, but on the other hand, has history panned out to be pretty much what he describes?
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting because to tie in all the things you just said, and we've been talking about democracy, hypocrisy, and inactive government. I mean, in the Federalist Papers, they talked about you don't want to have a government that can get things done. You want gridlock. You want competing factions to stop things from going, which is why they didn't create a democracy, simple majority rule. But back to the hypocrisy, for as long as I followed politics, I've heard conservatives, Republicans say this is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. And I always agree. They're absolutely right. And they say, they defend the Electoral College on those grounds. The other day, I heard Tucker Carlson, and he talked about how these people are trying to get Trump off the ballot. I think he's referring to the 14th Amendment challenge, that he's not eligible because of January 6th. But Tucker Carlson says that's not how democracy works. In democracy, the people choose. Well, hold on. If it is a constitutional violation, the people don't get to override that. We don't have a democracy.
Right.
We don't have majority rule. But all of a sudden, because it fits the narrative that Tucker Carlson wants, we're going to go with that. And that is just back to the hypocrisy. And it's writ large, Jim. It's the politicians. It's the conservative media. I mean, the left-wing media, I've always seen them as they're left-wing. I know what I'm going to get. But the right-wing media has so fallen in line for Trump. What are we going to end up with? I mean, they're calling for Trump. I don't know if you know this, but there's people out there saying he should be the Speaker of the House.
Right. He was nominated before. They're going to nominate someone on the floor of the House is going to nominate him for Speaker. The Speaker doesn't have to be an elected member.
No.
There's nothing in the Constitution that requires that. They could nominate anyone they wanted to be the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House is a powerful figure. That Speaker controls what comes to the floor for a vote or not. And they can do committee stuff without a speaker. They have an interim speaker right now, but they really can't bring anything to the floor for a vote until they decide on a speaker. You're absolutely right. We do not live in a democracy. The framers would have been horrified at the idea of a raw, pure democracy. Our Bill of Rights begins. In fact, the most important thing about our system is its defense of individual rights.
Against majorities.
Shall make no law. I don't care if you have a 90% majority, a 99% majority, Congress shall make no law. And there's a whole bunch of things. In fact, that's the open-ended thing. And the things you can do are the specified limited. We've discussed this in a couple of different occasions before. So the whole idea is, first of all, government is an extremely limited thing. It can't do most things. Most things are beyond its power even. So democracy is shackled right there. But look at all the institutions we have that you mentioned that slow down and thwart democracy. The Senate is totally undemocratic. North Dakota and Wyoming have just as many senators as New York and California, despite the population differences. I mean, I think they have one elected representative from those states, Wyoming, and 2 senators, whereas, of course, there's dozens of Congress people from New York and California and only 2 senators. It's totally, the Electoral College weights things in that by counting up both the House representatives, which are proportioned by population, and the senators, giving an extra weight to the smaller states in their choice for president. All of that is totally, the Supreme Court in enforcing the Constitution and the rights, totally undemocratic. We live in a system which is designed to slow down and to consider the rules of the Senate. They had filibusters. They have these rules in favor of unanimous consent. Boy, they have slowed down, and that is the glory of our system and what the framers intended. In current days, Democrats are the ones attacking this. Let's change the Supreme Court or the Electoral College. Let's change the Electoral College or the Senate even. I've heard Democrats say it's undemocratic. Let's change that. And now you got Donald Trump doing, and the Republicans joining in, just as you pointed out, in attacking our basic institutions. You got Tucker Carlson advocating for fascist democracy. It's not that system, Tucker. We have a system which was designed by our framers to hamstring the government. And thank goodness for that.
I need to get you on Tucker Carlson to say that's not our system, Tucker. We have another super chat from Robert Naser. $2. He says, Valliant Liebowitz 2024, the only rational choice. We might be on to something there. He says, also, people don't want Trump. If U.S. was a democracy, Hillary would have been a president. So would Al Gore, and so would whoever it was that ran against Grover Cleveland. I can't remember right now. But
Richard Nixon might have been president in 1960. But I'm not sure about those particular elections. I think that Trump beat Hillary.
Not in the popular vote.
Not in the
that's what you're talking about. Yeah,
we have numerous cases. Yeah, we have multiple cases where popular vote, and there have been cases of corruption even where even some of these accusations of illegitimacy may be true. The 1960 election, it
Sure.
looked to me like Chicago's political machine got President Kennedy elected in 1960. But that may be the only one where I'm confident about that. But in terms of popular vote, absolutely. There have been numerous. I think the last one, apart from Trump, was George W. Bush.
He beat Al Gore. Yeah.
So within just everyone's lifetime who's hearing me right now, we've had 2 presidents elected, became president without the popular vote.
Yeah.
That's the American system, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing in the Constitution that even says the citizenry gets a vote for president.
Oh, absolutely. It's up to the states. It's only because it's the state legislatures that can decide how their electors are picked. Absolutely. It's only because all 50 states have decided to have popular elections that there are elections for president. It doesn't have to be popular election at all. You're absolutely right.
So, Jim, I want you to put your Nostradamus hat on for a minute here and give me a prediction. What is going to happen with this speakerless House? How long till they get a speaker? Who's it going to be? I can't imagine many people would want it. I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ayn Rand, when someone asked her, I think it was Playboy magazine asked her, would you ever consider becoming a politician? Her response was, I trust you don't hate me enough to wish such a fate upon me. And so my only thing about us running for president is it would be probably a miserable time for both of us. But the truth is, you ask a very practical question. Who do I think it's going to be? Probably Steve Scalise, maybe Donalds. That would be great. He'd be the first Black Speaker of the House, and he's a senior Republican. Or Jim Jordan from Ohio. He's extremely popular. But these guys are basically of the same ilk as McCarthy. So they all, and guess what? These 8 nuts who kicked out McCarthy, they said, oh yeah, Scalise would be cool with us. Jim Jordan would be cool with us. Well, then why the hell did you do it? Because by next week, they'll have a new speaker and we'll be pretty much back to, status quo ante, the situation it was before. And pretty much the same results will happen. Only Matt Gaetz will have given the Republican Party a black eye and himself the personal headline he wanted. So I don't see much practical effect, but I predict someone like Scalise or Jim Jordan will probably get it by next week sometime.
And I think it's going to have a detrimental effect on the Republican electoral prospects next time. I just, right or wrong, people don't like to see this. It just seems so dysfunctional. On top of everything else that's wrong with government, like it's so, and for what reason? You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
For what?
To
accomplish what end? And you don't even have a plan on who to. It's not like they, at least when the mob killed Paul Castellano, they knew they wanted Gotti. You know what I mean? Like they didn't just kill him.
They had a result in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
They didn't
a little
just
more
kill the guy and say, "Oh, wait a second,
yeah.
What are we going to do?"
But you're right. It's a black guy that's going to hurt the Republicans generally. On the other hand, the net effect of it, I'm not sure of, because if these recent polls are any indication, Joe Biden and the Democrats are in serious trouble too for a whole host of reasons. So can I make a prediction about the outcome of the elections next year?
Sure.
It's a year away. It's a year away. I'm not going to make a prediction yet, but because, like I say, a third-party candidate for president.
So why'd you ask if you can make the prediction? You said, "Can I make a prediction?" I said, "Go ahead," and then you asked, I asked you to do it.
I'm telling you,
I'm not going
to
do that.
In fact, make a prediction, and I'm saying I metaphysically cannot make a prediction. I'm simply incapable.
It was a retaurical question.
Rhetorical question.
You asked. I thought you were asking me. I'm saying, well, why you ask if you're not going to do it?
Oh, I'd be willing to throw. Yogi Berra's right. Predictions are hard, especially about the future. But no, I'm not going to even be that cowardly. Sometimes I'll make a prediction. I predicted Joe Biden would win at about this time in relation to the Trump election. I predicted Trump would win at about this time in relation to the Hillary Clinton election. This time, and I was right, but this time I do not have that confidence. I do not know what the outcome of the election about a year from now is going to be at this stage. Check in with me in about 6 months, and maybe I'll be Nostradamus, an accurate Nostradamus as I often am about these things. This time I'm not. I don't have the cojones to make a prediction.
It's the worst 2 guys. It's insane. Like the only one that can, it seems to me, that can beat Biden would be. I mean, that the only Republican that Biden can beat is Trump. and the only Democrat Trump can beat is Biden. And yet these two parties full of jabronis are going to nominate these guys.
Exactly. You said it brilliantly.
Well, Jim, it has been an awesome conversation. Tonight, 6 p.m. UK time. And I got to tell you, all these different times are starting to drive me crazy. When I got interviews to do, I don't know, Central Time, Pacific Time. But anyway, 6 p.m. UK time, the reality show on our oil industry executives finally standing up for themselves. No, that can't be right.
Well,
Alex, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm all screwed up. We're on the Daily Objective. Yes, at 6 p.m. UK time. So coming up next, the reality show is going to be on our oil industry executives finally standing up for themselves. Then at 10 p.m. UK time, Cutting Edge with Lee Pearson, Steve Richins, Bob Stubblefield, and Dan Norton on how is consciousness more than a couch potato. And tomorrow, Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time, the Briefly Objective is relaunching with a new video, why altruism is evil. And yes, it certainly is. And I guess for now, that's it.
Well, thank you, Michael. This is as always, a fun and great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother Jim. It's been phenomenal.